The horrified Vulcan science team stared at their sensor readings in disbelief. There, impossibly, in the swirling maelstrom of the void between universes, was the battered hull of a human starship, and it was broadcasting a distress signal. 3 days ago, the experimental Odyssey and her crew of 87 humans had vanished during a test of their prototype quantum drive. The ship was presumed lost with all hands in a disastrous malfunction. But now the crippled Odyssey had reappeared where no ship was ever meant to be, in the lethal no-man's land between realities where the laws of space and time crumbled. "This is impossible," muttered the Vulcan captain. "No one can survive in the void. It's certain death." He hailed the human wreck and was answered by the haggard but defiant face of Commander Kyle Adams. "This is Captain Adams of Earthship Odyssey. We require immediate assistance. Our quantum field is failing. Hull breach imminent." The transmission crackled with interference. "Human, you are trespassing in restricted space," barked the Vulcan. "Power down and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire." Adams glared at the screen. "We will not surrender our ship. We have injured crew. We claim the right of free passage. I demand to speak to an Earth representative immediately." As the two captains faced off, half a galaxy away, the Galactic Council had just received word of the Odyssey's miraculous survival in the void. Chaos erupted in the council chambers as the news spread. If humans possessed technology that allowed them to enter the no-go zones between universes, it could destabilize the balance of power and overthrow the established order. This could not be allowed. The fate of the Odyssey and its quantum drive technology now hung by a thread. The ship and her crew had achieved the impossible, but their triumph might be short-lived. Hostile forces were already mobilizing to bury the human breakthrough and make sure the secrets of the void remained lost forever. The clock was ticking. What happened in the next hours would decide the future, not just of the Odyssey, but of the human race. In the aftermath of the tense confrontation between the Odyssey and the Vulcan ship, Earth found itself at the center of a brewing galactic storm. The miraculous survival of the human crew in the deadly void between universes had sent shockwaves through the fragile political balance. Rival factions saw both threat and opportunity in the humans' quantum drive breakthrough. Commander Kyle Adams now led a top-secret research team, racing against time to unravel the secrets of the damaged drive. The arrival of Dr. Eliza Novak, Earth's leading quantum propulsion expert, brought fresh insight to the daunting technical challenges they faced. But progress was frustratingly slow, with the wreckage yielding its mysteries reluctantly under the probing of their instruments and simulations. Unknown to Adams, malevolent forces were already moving against them. The Galactic Council had dispatched Zarn, their most lethal covert operative, to infiltrate Earth and neutralize the human threat. Zarn's elite Black Ops team slipped through Earth's defenses like ghosts, seamlessly blending into the population. They mapped out the secret research facility, preparing to strike and bury the humans' discovery forever. But as the Council team launched their raid, they found themselves under blistering fire from an unexpected source. A ruthless cadre of soldiers, jam-packed with advanced weapons, cut off their advance and sent them scrambling for cover. The Council operatives were shocked to discover their adversaries were human, a rogue military faction led by the shadowy General Nathaniel Briggs. Adams and Novak soon found themselves standing before Briggs and a group of stone-faced aliens, representatives of the enigmatic Orion Alliance. The Alliance proposed a devil's bargain, Earth's quantum drive secrets in exchange for weapons and support against the Council. Adams agonized over the decision, torn between mistrust of these new players and the fear of his world facing the Council's wrath alone. Before a decision could be made, alarms pierced the air as Zarn's forces mounted a second assault, tracking the rogue faction to the parley. In the chaos of explosions and whining energy weapons, Adams and Novak barely escaped with the crucial quantum drive component. Fleeing Earth in a stolen stealth ship, they charted a desperate course for the one place their pursuers could never follow, the uncharted void between universes. As they hurtled into the maelstrom where time and space unraveled, a mysterious message flickered on their comm screen. An anonymous ally hinted at a hidden Orion base, deep in the lightless realm beyond the stars, that could hold the key to their survival. With the improvised quantum drive engaged in the yawning abyss before them, Adams and Novak plunged into the unknown. Behind them, Earth's fate, in the future of the galaxy, hung in the balance. The stolen stealth ship shuddered as it emerged from the quantum jump. Commander Kyle Adams gripped the controls tightly, his fingers tightening. Beside him, Dr. Eliza Novak's eyes widened as she took in the sight before them. "My God," she whispered. A massive space station loomed against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. Its sleek, curved architecture contrasted sharply with the utilitarian designs of Earth vessels. The Orion Alliance insignia emblazoned its hull, a stylized constellation glowing faintly in the void. "We're being hailed," Adams said, tapping the communications panel. A stern face materialized on the display. "Earth vessel, this is Admiral Zara Vostok of the Orion Alliance. You are trespassing in restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." Adams leaned forward. "Admiral, I'm Commander Kyle Adams. This is Dr. Eliza Novak. We received coordinates leading us here." Vostok's eyes narrowed. "Ah, the quantum drive pioneers? We've been expecting you." As Vostok explained the Alliance's interest in Earth quantum technology, Adams and Novak exchanged uneasy glances. The offer of support was tempting, but years of isolation had bred caution in humanity's representatives. "Why now?" Adams asked. "Why reveal yourselves after staying hidden for so long?" Vostok's lips thinned. "The galaxy is changing, Commander. The Council's grip on power is slipping. Your breakthrough could tip the scales." While Adams and Novak grappled with this revelation, events on Earth spiraled out of control. General Nathaniel Briggs paced in his opulent living room, now a gilded cage. The house arrest had come swiftly after his dealings with the Orion Alliance were exposed. A muffled thump outside made him pause. The door burst open, revealing a squad of soldiers led by his most trusted lieutenant. "Sir, we need to move, now." Briggs nodded grimly, following them to awaiting transport. As they sped towards a hidden facility, he clenched his fists. He'd sacrificed too much to give up now. The prototype stealth ship gleamed in the hangar, its experimental quantum drive humming with potential. Briggs strapped himself in, plotting a course to follow Adams and Novak into the unknown. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council chambers erupted into chaos. Species that had coexisted uneasily for millennia now turned on each other, demanding answers and action. Vulcan High Counselor Korvac stood impassively at the center of the storm. His voice, when it came, silenced the din. "We cannot allow this human threat to destabilize the galaxy. I am authorizing a preemptive strike." As warships assembled, Adams and Novak delved deeper into the mysteries of the Orion Alliance station. They pored over data on ancient ruins discovered within the void, hints of a civilization that had mastered travel between universes. In a cavernous laboratory, Novak's fingers flew over holographic displays. "Kyle, look at this. These energy signatures. They're unlike anything we've seen before." Adams leaned in, frowning. "What does it mean?" "I'm not sure, but—" An alarm blared, cutting her off. Admiral Vostok's voice crackled over the intercom. "Adams, Novak, report to the command center immediately. We've detected multiple quantum signatures entering the system." As they raced through the station's corridors, neither of them could shake the feeling that they stood on the precipice of something far greater than they had ever imagined. The fate of humanity, the balance of galactic power, and perhaps the very fabric of reality itself, now hung in the balance. Adams and Novak hunched over a holographic display, ancient symbols flickering before their eyes. The ruins within the void had yielded tantalizing clues about a long-lost species that once traversed the multiverse at will. "Look at this," Novak said, pointing to a complex glyph. "I think it's describing some kind of dimensional gateway." Before Adams could respond, alarms blared through the station. Admiral Vostok's voice crackled over the intercom. "Adams, Novak, report to Docking Bay 3 immediately." They rushed through the corridors, arriving just as a sleek stealth ship touched down. The hatch hissed open, revealing a familiar figure. "General Briggs," Adams said, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. Briggs stepped forward, his face etched with tension. Commander, Doctor, we need to talk. In Vostok's office, Briggs paced like a caged animal. You don't understand. Earth is on the brink. We need that quantum drive technology back home, now. It's not that simple, Novak argued. We're on the verge of something much bigger here. Their debate was cut short as a junior officer burst in. Admiral, we're detecting massive quantum signatures. The Council fleet has entered the void. Vostok's eyes hardened. So it begins. Adams, Novak, I need you in Lab 7. We're accelerating our plans. In the cavernous laboratory, a team of Alliance scientists swarmed around fragments of ancient technology. Novak's fingers flew across a console, extrapolating data from the ruins. If we can reverse engineer this, she muttered, we might stand a chance. A violent explosion rocked the station. Klaxons wailed as Vostok's voice rang out. All hands, battle stations, we have multiple breaches. Adams sprinted down a smoke-filled corridor, plasma rifle at the ready. He rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of heavily armed intruders, led by a cold-eyed operative. Zarn, Adams growled, recognizing the Council's top agent. The firefight was brutal and swift. Adams felt a searing pain in his side as a shot grazed him. He stumbled, and Zarn was on him in an instant, a neural extractor pressed to his temple. The quantum drive specs, Zarn hissed. Now! A barrage of weapons fire forced Zarn back. Alliance security poured into the corridor, and the Council operative vanished into the chaos. Hours later, Adams stood on the bridge of an advanced Alliance ship, staring at a star chart. Beside him, Novak and Briggs studied the coordinates they'd extracted from the ruins. We're detecting some kind of artificial construct, the pilot announced as they dropped out of quantum space. Before them hung a shimmering bubble of distorted spacetime. As they passed through its membrane, a vast array of construction facilities and mothballed ships stretched as far as the eye could see. My God, Briggs whispered. With this, we could... His words were cut off by a massive explosion. On the screen, the familiar shapes of Council warships poured into the system. Evasive maneuvers, Adams shouted. Briggs's ship shuddered under heavy fire as it moved to cover their retreat. Adams watched helplessly as the general's vessel erupted in a ball of flame. Back at the Alliance station, Novak pored over the data they'd recovered. Her eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. Kyle, she said, her voice trembling, I think I know why those aliens came to the void in the first place. And if I'm right, we're all in far more danger than we realized. As alarms blared and the station shook under the Council's assault, Adams and Novak raced against time to unlock the secrets of the ancient technology. The fate of not just humanity, but perhaps all of reality, hung in the balance. Alarms blared throughout the station as Adams and Novak raced to the command center. They burst through the doors to find Admiral Vostok surrounded by a group of grim-faced Orion Alliance leaders. We've made a critical discovery, Vostok said, her voice tight. The ancient aliens weren't just explorers, they were guardians. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a monstrous, tentacled form. Novak's breath caught in her throat. The Void Wraith, Vostok continued, an extra-dimensional entity that nearly wiped out the ancients. Our analysis suggests it's still out there, waiting. Before anyone could respond, the doors hissed open again. General Briggs stumbled in, his uniform scorched and torn. Zarn, he gasped. He's turned, formed his own faction. They ambushed us, stole data on the ruins. The room erupted into chaos as the implications sank in. Adams raised his voice over the din. What's our move, Admiral? Vostok's eyes hardened. We strike first, use the ancient shipyards to build a fleet capable of taking on the Council before Zarn can awaken the Void Wraith. Within hours, Adams and Novak found themselves overseeing operations at the vast shipyards. Alien and human engineers worked side by side, bringing long-dormant production lines to life. A violent tremor shook the facility. Novak steadied herself against a console. Another voidquake, she muttered. That's the third one in as many hours. Adams frowned, studying the sensor readouts. These aren't natural. The energy signatures, Zarn's using the stolen data to trigger them remotely. As if on cue, alarms blared. A technician's voice crackled over the comms. Multiple contacts emerging from the void. It's Zarn's mercenary fleet. Adams sprinted for the nearest shuttle, barking orders into his comm unit. Get those ships online now. All non-essential personnel, evacuate immediately. The void erupted into chaos. Half-completed vessels engaged Zarn's forces in a desperate holding action. Adams weaved through the melee, narrowly evading boarding parties as he covered the last evacuation shuttles. A massive voidquake tore through space-time, sending ships tumbling. In the distance, a colossal vortex ripped open. Adams watched in horror as a nightmarish form emerged, tentacles writhing, each larger than the biggest council dreadnought. The Void Wraith, he whispered. The eldritch entity lashed out indiscriminately, its otherworldly energies shredding hulls and vaporizing crew. Human, alien, and mercenary alike found themselves united against a common, unfathomable threat. Adams's shuttle rocked as a tentacle passed dangerously close. He gripped the controls, searching desperately for a path through the chaos. Behind him, Novak worked furiously at a console. If I can just isolate the quantum resonance frequency, she muttered, maybe we can... Her words were cut off as another voidquake slammed into them. Adams fought to regain control, acutely aware that their next move could determine the fate of not just humanity, but all of reality itself. The shuttle bucked violently as another voidquake rippled through space-time. Adams gritted his teeth, wrestling with the controls as Novak clung to her console. "Brace for impact!" he shouted as a massive tentacle lashed out, missing them by mere meters. The void erupted into pandemonium. Half-constructed ships engaged Zarn's mercenary fleet in a desperate battle for survival, but all paled in comparison to the nightmarish entity that now dominated the battlefield. The Void Wraith's otherworldly form dwarfed even the largest vessels present. Its writhing appendages tore through hulls without difficulty, vaporizing entire squadrons with bursts of eldritch energy. Adams's comm crackled to life. Admiral Vostok's voice cut through the chaos. "All Alliance vessels, fall back to the station immediately. Repeat, full retreat." He banked hard, narrowly avoiding a stray energy blast. "We'll never make it through that carnage," he muttered. Novak's eyes darted across her displays. "There," she exclaimed, pointing to a half-finished ship of clearly alien design. "That's one of the ancient vessels. If we can get aboard..." Adams didn't hesitate. He sent the shuttle into a steep dive, expertly weaving through the debris field. They touched down in a cavernous hangar just as another tremor shook the structure. Racing through unfamiliar corridors, they reached what appeared to be a bridge. Novak's fingers flew across alien interfaces, coaxing long-dormant systems to life. "I think I've got weapons online," she said, "but I can't make sense of half these readouts." A deafening screech reverberated through the ship as a Void Wraith tendril slammed into the hull. Adams grabbed the helm controls. "No time to learn, we need to move." The ancient vessel surged forward, its quantum drive humming with untapped power. A vicious energy beam lanced out from its prow, carving a path through the chaos. "All remaining personnel," Adams broadcast on an open channel, "head for the gap. We'll cover your retreat." As evacuation shuttles streamed past, Adams noticed Zarn's fleet regrouping. Despite heavy losses, the mercenaries pressed their attack, seeing an opportunity to cripple the Alliance's fledgling armada. The void became a three-way killing field. Alliance ships provided covering fire for the retreating evacuees. Zarn's forces harried them relentlessly. And above it all, the Void Wraith lashed out indiscriminately, consumed by an alien hunger. Adams pushed the ancient ship to its limits, its quantum weapons blazing. They cut through Zarn's fighters with surgical precision, but for every mercenary vessel they destroyed, the Void Wraith claimed two more. "We can't keep this up," Novak warned, her eyes fixed on rapidly depleting power readings. As if in answer, a priority transmission cut through the comm static. It was General Briggs, his voice strained but determined. "Adams, Novak, get to the station, now. We need every asset we have to reinforce the shields. The Void Wraith is breaking through." They turned toward the Alliance stronghold, horror dawning as they saw massive tentacles beginning to breach the outer hull. energy arced between the appendages, methodically probing for weaknesses. Adams gripped the controls, pushing the ancient vessel's engines beyond safe limits. They rocketed toward the station, the quantum lance glowing with building power. "Brace yourself," he shouted. The beam lanced out, severing the invading tendril. The void wraith recoiled, its unearthly screech reverberating through space itself. As they docked, Novak's eyes widened. "Kyle, look at this," she said, gesturing to a cascade of data flowing across her screens. "The ship's databanks, I think it's telling us how the ancients fought these things." Before Adams could respond, Admiral Vostok's face appeared on the main view screen. Her expression was grim but determined. "Dr. Novak, I need that intel now. We're deploying our capital ships with experimental vortex mines. If your data can help us set a proper trap..." Novak nodded, her fingers already flying across the console as she relayed the critical information. Vostok's lips tightened into a thin line. "Understood. All ships, prepare for Phase Omega. We end this now." "All ships, prepare for Phase Omega. We end this now," Admiral Vostok's voice crackled over the comms. Adams gripped the controls of the ancient voidcraft, its quantum engines humming with untapped power. Beside him, Novak's fingers danced across alien interfaces, decoding critical data from the ship's databanks. "Coordinates locked," she announced. "Zarn's base is in a system with a central black hole. He's using the accretion disk as cover." The joint task force surged forward, ships of human and alien design moving in perfect formation. As they entered the system, the black hole's gravitational pull tugged at their sensors. Massive defense platforms bristled with weapons, while Zarn's carrier loomed in the distance. "Incoming!" General Briggs' voice cut through the comms. A swarm of fighters and boarding craft poured from Zarn's fleet, threatening to overwhelm them. Adams pushed the Voidcraft's engines to their limit. "Novak, divert power to the quantum lances." Energy arced between the ship's prongs, carving a path through the enemy formation. Alliance vessels followed in their wake, capitalizing on the opening. "We need to push deeper," Vostok ordered. "Adams, can that ship handle the accretion disk?" He glanced at Novak, who nodded grimly. "Quantum shielding should hold. It's our best shot at flanking them." The Voidcraft plunged into the superheated plasma, riding currents of raw energy. Novak's fingers tightened as she gripped her console, fighting to maintain power balance. Through the maelstrom, Adams caught glimpses of Zarn's heaviest warships attempting to escape. He triggered the quantum lances, precise beams lashing out to cripple engines and weapon systems. "Admiral," Novak's voice was urgent, "I'm detecting a quantum wavefront expanding from the black hole's core. If it keeps building..." Vostok's face paled. "Zarn's using a quantum strike. He'll tear the system apart." Adams's mind raced. The ancient ship quivered beneath him, its systems straining against the gravitational forces. He made a decision. "I'm going in," he announced. "We can use the Voidcraft's quantum arsenal to neutralize the Singularity's potential." "That's suicide," Briggs protested. "It's our only chance," Vostok countered. "Do it, Adams. We'll cover your approach and begin evacuating our forces." The Voidcraft dove towards the black hole's maw. Alarms blared as the ship's structure groaned under the immense stress. Novak's voice guided him, a lifeline of data as his instruments began to fail. "Almost there," she urged. "Quantum capacitors at maximum charge." Time seemed to stretch as they neared the event horizon. Adams's fingers hovered over the release, waiting for the perfect moment. "Now!" He slammed the controls. A burst of pure quantum energy erupted from the Voidcraft, colliding with the building shockwave. For an instant, Adams thought they'd failed. Then the surge dissipated, harmonic fields canceling each other out. The ancient ship went dark, drifting helplessly near the black hole's edge. Through failing view screens, Adams watched Zarn's flagship vanish into the void, pursued by a handful of surviving mercenary vessels. "Adams, do you copy?" Briggs' voice was faint, distorted. "We're coming for you. Hold on." He felt the ship shudder as the Singularity's pull intensified. Indicator lights flickered weakly across dead consoles. A faint blue glow caught his eye, the quantum core, pulsing with its last reserves of energy. A shadow fell across the view screen. Alliance void ships swooped in, tethering themselves to the derelict craft. Adams closed his eyes as the engines fired, fighting against the black hole's inexorable pull. With a violent lurch, they broke free. The void craft's hull creaked ominously as they accelerated away from the system's heart. Hours later, Adams stood on the bridge of Vostok's flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main display. The Admiral's voice was solemn as she addressed the assembled leaders. Today, we've struck a decisive blow against Zarn's forces, but our work is far from finished. We must forge a true alliance between our peoples if we hope to face the challenges ahead. A junior officer approached, datapad in hand. Admiral, we're receiving reports of an anomalous quantum signature in Sector 9. Vostok's eyes narrowed. Put it on screen. The display flickered, showing a familiar distortion in the fabric of spacetime. Adams felt a chill run down his spine as he recognized the telltale signs of another incursion into the void. The display flickered, revealing a distortion in the fabric of spacetime. Adams felt a chill run down his spine as he recognized the telltale signs of another incursion. Multiple contacts emerging from the anomaly, the sensor officer reported, her voice tense. Counting 27 warships of unknown configuration. Admiral Vostok's eyes narrowed. Hail them on all frequencies. Silence hung over the bridge as they waited for a response. Seconds stretched into minutes. No reply, Admiral, the communications officer said. Wait, they're accelerating. Attack vector confirmed. Vostok's voice cut through the rising tension. All ships, battle stations, Commander Adams, take point with the Voidcraft. I want eyes on those hostiles. Adams sprinted to the hangar, Novak close behind. The ancient vessel hummed to life as they strapped in, its quantum engines pulsing with barely restrained power. Launching now, Adams reported, guiding the ship out into the void. A squadron of Alliance fighters fell into formation around them, their sleek hulls gleaming in the starlight. As they closed the distance, the enemy fleet came into view. Alien vessels of brutal, angular design bristled with weapon emplacements. Adams opened a channel to hail them one last time. A blinding flash erupted from the lead ship. Adams barely had time to react, wrenching the controls hard to port. A quantum lance seared past, missing them by meters. So much for diplomacy, Novak muttered, her fingers flying across the sensor array. I'm reading massive energy buildups across their fleet. They're powering weapons. The void erupted in chaos. Disruptor beams lashed out, carving through the darkness. Alliance fighters scattered, evading the barrage with practiced precision. Adams pushed the Voidcraft to its limits, weaving through the storm of fire. He targeted the nearest enemy vessel, the quantum lance blazing to life. The beam struck true, shearing through the alien ship's shields and gouging a deep furrow in its hull. A massive shadow fell over them. Adams looked up to see a colossal form emerging from the rear of the enemy fleet. It dwarfed even the largest Alliance dreadnoughts, its surface a nightmarish landscape of organic protrusions and weapon nodes. By the void, Novak whispered, her face pale as she studied the readings. Kyle, that thing, it's alive, some kind of bioconstruct, and its quantum signature. I've seen it before in the ruins. It's Zendrasi. Before Adams could respond, the titanic vessel pulsed with sickly green energy. Dozens of objects detached from its hull, streaking towards the Allied fleet. Incoming, Adams shouted, broadcasting to all channels. Brace for impact. The Voidcraft's sensors shrieked as the biomissiles closed in. Adams gritted his teeth, pushing the ship's quantum countermeasures to their limit. Energy lashed out, detonating the organic projectiles in a series of brilliant explosions. Through the chaos, Adams spotted General Briggs' battle group laying down suppressing fire, covering the retreat of damaged Allied vessels. A priority transmission cut through the comm chatter. Adams's blood ran cold as a familiar face appeared on the console. Greetings, Commander. Zarn's reptilian features twisted into a cruel smile. I see you've met our new friends. Beside him stood a stern-faced Vulcan, that Adams recognized as High Counselor Korvac. "You've made a grave mistake," Korvac intoned. "The Zendrasi will cleanse this sector, and we will share in the spoils of your defeat." Adams cut the transmission, his mind racing. The odds were overwhelming, but surrender wasn't an option. He opened a secure channel to Briggs. "General, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might buy us some time." "I'm all ears, Commander," Briggs replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We're going to punch a hole in their formation," Adams explained. "I can use the Voidcraft to generate a subspace vortex. If we time it right, we can swallow a chunk of their fleet." "Do it," Briggs ordered. "My strike craft will cover you." Adams nodded to Novak, who began the complex calculations needed to tear open subspace. The Voidcraft surged forward, Alliance fighters screening their approach. As they neared the enemy line, Adams felt the ship vibrate as its quantum core reached critical mass. Space itself seemed to twist and buckle around them. "Now!" Novak shouted. Adams triggered the vortex. Reality tore open before them. A maelstrom of raw quantum energy. Enemy ships caught in its pull were wrenched from normal space, disappearing into the void. For a moment, Adams dared to hope. Then the Zendrasi mothership pulsed with eldritch power. The fabric of space-time warped around it, a massive artificial singularity forming at its core. "It's trying to consume us whole," Novak realized, horror in her voice. Adams's mind raced. There was one option left, but it was beyond dangerous. "Novak, prep the experimental interdiction matrix," he ordered. "We're going to link our quantum capacitors directly to that thing's singularity." Her eyes widened. "That could tear us apart." "If we don't, we're all dead anyway," Adams replied grimly. As Novak worked, Adams broadcast to the fleet. "All ships jump to fallback coordinates now. We'll hold them here as long as we can." The Allied vessels vanished in flashes of light, leaving the Voidcraft alone against the titanic Zendrasi vessel. Adams engaged the interdiction matrix, feeling the ship groan as quantum forces beyond comprehension tore at its structure. The artificial singularity faltered, its pull weakening, but the strain on the Voidcraft was immense. Warning klaxons blared as systems began to fail. "We can't maintain this," Novak shouted over the din. "The quantum core is going critical." Adams watched as the battlefield around them began to collapse, drawn into a quantum cyclone fueled by the dueling singularities. The Voidcraft was trapped, locked in a deadly stalemate with the monstrous living vessel. As reality unraveled around them, Adams gripped the controls tighter. They had bought time for the fleet to escape, but at what cost? The quantum storm raged on, with no end in sight. Adams's fingers danced across the flickering controls, fighting to keep the ancient Voidcraft from being devoured by the Zendrasi mothership's ravenous singularity. Alarms blared as systems failed one by one, the ship groaning under the immense quantum forces tearing at its structure. "We're out of options," Novak shouted over the cacophony. "The core's going critical." Adams made a split-second decision. "Jettison the quantum capacitors." Novak's eyes widened. "That'll leave us defenseless." "It's our only shot," Adams growled, his hands steady on the controls. With a violent shudder, the Voidcraft's main weapon detached, tumbling into the maelstrom of warped space-time. The capacitor's unstable energy collided with the mothership's spatial distortion, triggering a catastrophic resonance wave. The vortex surrounding them pulsed erratically, reality itself buckling under the strain. Through the chaos, Adams spotted General Briggs's battle group surging forward. "Now's our chance," Briggs's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships, concentrate fire on that monstrosity." A barrage of vortex torpedoes slammed into the Zendrasi vessel, puncturing its quantum shielding. The living starship writhed, its biomechanical structure convulsing under the assault. "I'm in their systems," Novak announced, her fingers flying across her console. "Overloading keynodes. Now!" The mothership's surface erupted with arcs of sickly green energy as its internal systems cascaded into failure. Unable to maintain its artificial singularity, the massive vessel began to warp and twist, consumed by the very forces it had sought to control. On the main view screen, Adams watched as Korvac's flagship maneuvered closer to the deforming Zendrasi craft. The High Counselor's cold voice filled the command channel. "You leave me no choice. If we cannot have this universe, none shall." Zarn's reptilian features contorted in fury. "Korvac, you fool! You'll kill us all!" A brief struggle ensued before Korvac's hand slammed down on a control panel. Zarn's body crumpled to the floor, victim of his supposed ally's treachery. The Vulcan's eyes gleamed with fanatical intensity. "For the greater good." A blinding flash erupted from Korvac's vessel as its quantum drive breached. The fabric of space-time tore open, spawning a ravenous rift that began consuming everything in its path. Exotic radiation and interdimensional forces poured through the wound in reality. "All ships, emergency jump!" Admiral Vostok's voice cut through the chaos. "Fall back to prearranged coordinates." Adams watched in horror as the Zendrasi mothership, Korvac's flagship, and swathes of debris were drawn inexorably into the expanding rift. He knew the Voidcraft lacked the power for a jump. "Briggs," he called out, "I can get you clear, but we won't make it." The general's voice was grim. "Like hell you won't. We started this together. We're finishing it together." Adams nodded, though Briggs couldn't see it. "Novak, divert all remaining power to the subspace projectors. We're opening an emergency corridor." As Allied ships streaked towards them, Adams poured every ounce of the Voidcraft's dwindling energy into generating a stable subspace path. The ancient vessel shuddered, systems failing as it gave its last to ensure the others' escape. "Go!" Adams shouted as Briggs's ships entered the corridor. "We're right behind you!" The Voidcraft lurched forward, its engines sputtering. For a heart-stopping moment, Adams thought they wouldn't make it. Then a surge of energy from the disintegrating rift propelled them into the corridor mere seconds before it collapsed. They rematerialized at the rally point in a hail of cosmic debris and quantum shockwaves. Through the view screen, Adams watched in awe and terror as the region they'd escaped was torn asunder by the ever-expanding rift. Vostok's grim voice filled the command channel. "The rift is growing exponentially. If left unchecked, it could consume entire universes." The weight of their situation settled over the assembled commanders. They had neutralized Korvac and Zarn's immediate threat, but at a terrible cost. "We need to contact every star system, every reality we can reach," Adams said, his voice hoarse. "This isn't just our fight anymore. The entire multiverse is at stake." Novak's hand found his, squeezing gently. "How do we even begin to fix this?" Adams met her gaze, then looked out at the assembled fleet and the cosmic horror they'd unleashed. "I don't know, but we have to try. The alternative is unthinkable." As the battered Allied ships began dispatching urgent diplomatic missions, Adams couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The rift pulsed ominously in the distance, a cancer spreading across the cosmos, waiting to be excised. Adams's fingers flew across the Voidcraft's controls, stabilizing their position as the last echoes of the quantum shockwave dissipated. Through the view screen, the rift pulsed ominously, a festering wound in the fabric of reality. Admiral Vostok's face appeared on the main display, his expression grim. "We're receiving distress calls from every corner of known space. The rift's effects are spreading exponentially." "We need to act fast," Adams replied, studying the cascade of incoming data. "This isn't just our fight anymore. We need everyone." Novak's voice cut through the din of alarms and chatter. "I'm broadcasting on all frequencies, across every dimension we can reach. If there's anyone out there who can help, they'll hear us." As if in response to their call, the sensors lit up. Ships began appearing in flashes of light. Vessels of countless designs from civilizations spread across the cosmos. Some were familiar, others utterly alien. A Kree battlecruiser materialized alongside a swarm of crystalline Tholian vessels. Borg cubes hung in uneasy proximity to sleek Asari frigates. Even the reclusive Chiss had sent a contingent. "My God," Briggs breathed, his weathered face filling a section of the view screen. "I've never seen anything like this." Adams nodded, a mix of hope and trepidation coursing through him. "Let's hope it's enough." The command channel crackled as representatives from each fleet checked in. Despite language barriers and centuries of conflict, a tense cooperation took hold. The stakes were too high for anything less. As the armada assembled, the rift convulsed. Reality itself seemed to buckle and tear. From the widening maw, nightmarish forms began to emerge. Extra-dimensional entities, Novak reported, her voice tight. The rift is drawing them in from everywhere. Writhing tentacles of pure energy lashed out, grasping at nearby ships. Crystalline beings that hurt the eye to look upon phased in and out of normal space. And through it all, a cacophony of alien thoughts battered at the edges of sanity. "All ships, defensive formation," Vostok barked. "Contain those things while we formulate a plan." The next minutes were chaos. Atoms wove the void craft through the melee, its ancient weapons slicing through transdimensional horrors. Around them, the motley armada fought with desperate ferocity. A Vulcan science vessel vanished in a burst of antimatter as a cosmic horror latched onto its warp core. Romulan warbirds unleashed salvos of plasma torpedoes, only for the weapons to curve impossibly through space-time and strike their own ships. "This isn't working," Briggs growled, his vessel barely avoiding a collision with a flailing, planet-sized pseudopod. "We need to take the fight to the source." Adams's mind raced, piecing together fragments of information from the alien ruins, Novak's theories, and the quantum chaos unfolding before them. A plan began to form. "Admiral," he called out, "I have an idea, but it's going to take everything we've got." As Adams outlined his strategy, a grim silence fell over the command channel. It was audacious, desperate, and likely suicidal. But faced with the annihilation of all reality, there was no other choice. Vostok nodded, his usual stoicism cracking to reveal a flicker of admiration. "Make it happen, Commander. We'll buy you the time you need." As the Allied fleets moved into position, Adams turned to Novak. Her eyes met his, understanding passing between them without words. They both knew what this plan would cost. "Sarah," he began, but she cut him off with a fierce embrace. "I know," she whispered. "Just make it count." Adams allowed himself one moment to hold her before pulling away. He opened a channel to Briggs. "General, it's been an honor." Briggs' weathered face creased in a sad smile. "The honor's been mine, son. Now go save the universe." With a final nod to his friends and comrades, Adams plotted a course into the heart of the rift. The Voidcraft's engines flared to life, propelling them towards destiny. Behind them, the greatest armada ever assembled unleashed hell upon the cosmic horrors. A storm of vortex torpedoes and dimensional charges battered the rift's event horizon, clearing a path. Adams pushed the ancient vessel to its limits, feeling it strain under forces beyond comprehension. As they plunged deeper, reality itself began to fray at the edges. "Quantum matrices at maximum," Novak shouted over the ship's protestations. "Core temperature critical." Adams gritted his teeth, hands steady on the controls. "Just a little further." The rift's maw yawned before them, a maelstrom of impossible geometries and mind-shattering vistas. At its heart, Adams glimpsed the foundational framework of all existence, and the hairline fractures spreading through it. With trembling fingers, he keyed in the final sequence. The Voidcraft's systems howled in protest as he pushed them beyond all safety limits. "Sarah," he said softly, "it's been—" A blinding flash consumed everything as Adams triggered the quantum detonation. The Voidcraft's full potential erupted in a focused sunburst, igniting a chain reaction at the very core of the rift. Outside, the Allied armada watched in awe and terror as the fabric of space-time began to knit itself back together. The cosmic horrors were drawn screaming back into the collapsing vortex, reality reasserting itself in their wake. But the process was far from gentle. Waves of destructive energy radiated outward, battering the assembled ships. Jump drives overloaded, leaving vessels stranded as the subspace corridors that had allowed their gathering began to seal. In the epicenter of the cataclysm, Adams became one with the quantum maelstrom. For an eternal instant, he was everywhere and everywhen, a living singularity around which all of creation pivoted. Then, in a final reality-shattering implosion, The rift sealed itself. Silence fell across the battlefield. The remaining ships drifted, battered and scarred, as their crews struggled to comprehend what had just occurred. Slowly, the realization dawned that they had won, but at an unimaginable cost. As sensors came back online and damage reports flooded in, the true scope of the changes became apparent. The quantum tapestry of the cosmos had been fundamentally altered. Interdimensional travel was no longer possible, the pathways seared shut by the cataclysm. The fragile alliance that had saved all of creation began to fracture almost immediately. With no way to return to their home realities, tensions flared between the stranded fleets. Admiral Vostok's voice, weary but resolute, cut through the growing chaos. "All ships, stand down. We've all lost too much today. We need to—" His transmission was cut short as a Klingon battlecruiser opened fire on a nearby Cardassian vessel. Within moments, the delicate peace shattered. As the melee erupted anew, Briggs's weathered face appeared on the few functioning view screens. "This is General Briggs to all Earth vessels. Fall back to the solar system. We need to secure our borders before—" Static overwhelmed the channel as another wave of quantum instability washed over the fleet. Ships vanished mid-transmission, their fate unknown. In the vast empty space where the rift had been, a lone escape pod drifted. Inside, Dr. Sarah Novak stirred, her eyes slowly focusing on the carnage unfolding around her. Her hand trembled as she reached for the emergency beacon, hesitating for just a moment before activating it. As the pod's distress signal pulsed out into the void, Novak's gaze was drawn to a strange distortion in the fabric of space-time, a lingering echo of the cataclysm that had just reshaped the cosmos. For an instant, she thought she saw a familiar silhouette within the quantum flux. "Kyle?" she whispered, hope and dread warring in her chest. But before she could be certain, the anomaly vanished, leaving her alone in the silent darkness of space.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.